Hi all, it's Teresa in Gemma's house. I'm just sitting here admiring one of my quilts that I call my stained glass scrap quilt because it really does look like stained glass. And I think these black borders really help it to do that. So can I ask you right at the beginning of this video, if you like these videos, can you please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment? It sounds like a small thing, but it really does make a big difference with YouTube, the way they recommend videos to new viewers. So that will really help my YouTube channel to grow. So thanks a lot for doing that. So why don't I give you a closer look at this stained glass scrap quilt. I have to say this is one of my favorite quilts out of many favorite quilts that I have. But this quilt is so colorful, and I love the combination of scrap pieces of fabric that are in here because I recognize so many of them, actually all of them, from the other quilts that I made. And some of the scraps are from my daughter's little pajamas and dresses from when they were in grade school 25, 26 years ago too. So it's so cozy also, this quilt. It's a really nice weight because I put cotton batting in it and flannel on the backing. So with all these seams, it makes it a really nice weight of a quilt. Let me explain to you how I made this. First of all, I decided I wanted it to be non-directional. So there are some fabrics in here that have a design that are directional. Like here, this is a little country truck with a rooster. And right here, it's upside down, but you would never notice it. But most of the fabrics in here are non-directional. I think there are a few birds in here that are facing one direction or the other, like this here. So I wanted it to be a good size for the queen size bed. So I ended up deciding on 7 blocks by 7 blocks. So there were so many scraps I had, small scraps and larger scraps, from the previous 25 quilts that I had made before this one. First, I divided the scraps into basic color schemes. Reds, oranges, yellows, whites, greens, blues, purples, and then black and white prints, grays, and I threw some other brighter colors in there too. I started out making the blocks out of each of the basic color schemes, and I cut each block down to 10 by 10. Some color schemes yielded more blocks than others, of course. After I was done sewing all the blocks, I cut 1 1/4 inch strips out of a jelly roll that I had bought on sale, of course, of black on black prints. I love using these blacks in my quilts because it really makes the colors pop, doesn't it? So I cut strips and bordered each block with those. After I was done with that, I had this remnant piece of fabric, and I had just enough to cut 1 1/4 inch strips as sashing in between each block. But I ran out of that fabric, so I wanted to put a border around the entire quilt. So off to the fabric store I went, and I wanted to buy a black and white print that went well with the sashing fabric that I had used. And I thought this was perfect. I bought the rest of what they had on the bolt, which wasn't much. It was a little more than a yard, I think. And I was able to cut 1 3/4 inch strips for the border around the entire quilt. And also had enough to make the binding too. For the backing fabric, it's a wonderful flannel. It's so soft, it feels so great. And it was in the clearance section of my fabric store. That is just a national chain fabric store. And luckily there were 2 bolts that each had a 3-yard piece on it. So I bought both of those. It was probably $2 or $3 a yard. And I pieced those together, and I had plenty of fabric for the backing. After that, I decided to free motion quilt just inside each block, not on the borders or the sashing. So you can see it a little better here. So I free motion quilted it on my machine, and I really have fun free motion quilting. So this is the back of it. So the entire quilt ended up being 7 blocks wide, 7 blocks high, and it's just short of 7 feet by 7 feet. After I washed it and dried it in the machine, I do that intentionally to shrink it up a little bit, and that is what pulls it and makes this nice scrunchy quilt texture that I just love. So as you can imagine, any bedding I have, pillowcases, sheets, anything, goes great with this quilt because it has pretty much every color in it. And it also goes well to make it look kind of country-ish with just plain pillowcases and sheets with little embroidered edges on them. And it also goes really well with subtle flowered sheets. So I have a lot of nice choices how to dress up my bed. So I hope my videos inspire you to come up with some good ideas to use in your own projects. And again, if you can please leave me a comment and give me a thumbs up on this video, I would really appreciate it. So until next week, thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.